Let us talk about inheritance in C++. Inheritance is one of the most important concepts of object-oriented programming. Inheritance is the ability of one class to derive properties and functions from another class. The class that inherits these data and functions from another class is known as the derived class or subclass or child class, whereas the class from which it inherits these properties and behaviors is known as the base class or superclass or parent class. Advantages of inheritance include support for code reusability and extensibility. By code reusability, I mean once a class is written and tested, it can be reused multiple times for deriving newer classes. And extensibility makes it easier to include new functionality without changing the existing code. Here is the format of a derived class. First we mention the keyword class, then we mention the derived class name according to the rules for identifiers, then we put one colon mark which indicates that the class is inheriting from some other class, then we mention the derivation type which can be public, private or protected depending upon the type of derivation that we want in our class, and then we write the base class name. Then inside the set of curly brackets, we mention the members of the derived class. We have following three types of derivation when it comes to creating a new class from an existing class. First derivation type is public. In this case, the private members of the base class are not inherited, while public members of the base class become public members of the derived class, and similarly protected members of the base class become protected members of the derived class. In the second case, when the derivation type is private, private members of the base class are again not inherited, while the public and protected members of the base class become private members of the derived class. And finally, we have protected derivation type. In this case, the private members of the base class are once again not inherited, while the public and protected members of the base class become protected members of the derived class. We already know that there are three types of access specifiers, namely public, private and protected. Public members are those which are accessible from within the class in which they are defined and also accessible from the derived class and from the outside world. On the other hand, we have private access specifier. Private members are those which are accessible only from within the class which they belong to using the member functions of that class, while they are not accessible from within the derived class or from the outside world. The third type of access specifier that we have is protected. In this case, protected members are accessible from within the class which they belong to, and they are also accessible from the derived class, but they cannot be accessed from the outside world. There are 5 types of inheritance. Let us discuss them all one by one. The first type of inheritance is called as single inheritance. In this case, a derived class inherits from a single base class. The second type of inheritance is known as multiple inheritance, where a single derived class inherits from multiple base classes as shown in the figure. The third type of inheritance is multi-level inheritance. As the name suggests, it involves multiple levels of inheritance. So in this case, we have a class named C which is inheriting from class B, which in turn inherits from class A. So here class A is the base class for class B, while class B is the base class for class C. You can think of it like a grandparent, parent and child relationship. The fourth type of inheritance is hierarchical inheritance, where multiple derived classes can be created from a single base class. The fifth and final type of inheritance is a hybrid inheritance, which is a combination of two or more types of inheritance. For example, in the image shown here, we have a combination of multiple and multi-level inheritance. We are using two base classes A and B to derive a class named C, and then we are using this class C to derive another class D. In this example, we will be creating two base classes, namely a person class and an employee class. The person class has its own attributes, name and age, and two member functions including getPersonInfo and showPersonInfo. In the same way, employee base class is also having its own attribute named empID and two member functions getEmpInfo and showEmpInfo. Using these two classes, we derive another class called department, which is having all the members of person and employee class, and it also has its own department name as a single attribute, and two member functions getDepartmentInfo and showDepartmentInfo. And lastly, we are going to derive another class using this department class as the base class, and the newly derived class is known as salary class, having its own attributes, namely basic salary, days worked, deductions and total salary. This class will be calculating the salary of an employee, and therefore it has two member functions, getSalaryInfo and calculateSalary. At the top level, we have multiple inheritance because we have two base classes and a single derived class. And as a whole, we have multi-level inheritance because there are two levels of inheritance. Let us create its program. Let us begin by defining the first class, which is the person class. So this is going to be our first base class named person. We will type here keyword class, then we will type person, and under protected access specifier I am going to define its data members. First one is character type array name with length 20, and then we have integer age. These define the name and age of a person. Why I have used protected access specifier instead of private? Because we are later going to derive a new class from this base class. So whenever you want to use the members of a base class into the derived class, it is best to use protected access specifier, which is specially created for derivation or inheritance purposes. But as always, we will define member functions under public access specifier. Our first member function is void getPersonInfo. You can create your own function names. Functions are also known as methods. Okay, inside this I am going to type enter name, and then we will get input for name. Similarly, I will type here /n, enter age and cin age. Okay, this function is created. Let's create another function which is void showPersonInfo. Now inside this function I am going to simply display name and age of the person. So here we will type name and then variable name, then cout /n age, and here variable age. With this, definition of base class person is over. Let us now define the second base class employee by typing keyword class, and name of the class is employee. Okay, let me scroll it down for better visibility. Now under this we have protected access specifier, and here we will type int employee id or empID. This is the only data member that this class has, and then we will define the member functions. The first member function is void getEmpInfo, and inside this function I will simply ask for the employee ID, then we will get this value inside variable empID. In the same way, we will create another member function void showEmpInfo. Inside this function we will simply display the employee ID using the variable name empID. Now that we have defined both of our base classes, it's time to create the derived class called department. So here we will type class, then name of the derived class is department. but this class is inheriting from the above two base classes. So we have to type inheritance operator, which is represented by a single colon mark. Then we have to type the derivation mode, which is public in this case. I want to derive both person class and employee class using public access specifier, and then I have to mention the name of the first base class which I am using for inheritance purpose. Now if you have only single class, then it is okay and you can continue with the definition of the derived class. But here we have multiple base classes, so we will type a comma here, mention the derivation mode for the second base class, which is once again public, and then we will type the name of the second base class, which is employee. Now let us continue with the definition of department class. Here we will type protected access specifier once again, because we are going to create a new class using the department class, so it is better to keep the data member as protected, and it will be department name, which is a character type array having length 20. In the next step, we will define the member functions under public access specifier. My first member function here will be get department info, inside which I will be asking for department name, and then we will get this value inside department name variable. Then we will create the second member function, which is show department info. Inside this function we will simply display the name of the department, so we will type name of the department here, and then we will mention the name of the variable department name. Let us now define salary class, which inherits from this department class. This is also going to be a derived class and its name is salary. So here we type salary, then inheritance operator, then the mode in which we are inheriting department class, so it is public, and then the name of the base class here, and that is department. This is the case of single inheritance because we have only one base class department and one derived class salary. Now inside this class, using private access specifier, I am going to define the data members. First is float type basic salary, which defines the monthly salary of the employee. Then we have integer type days worked, means how many days employee has worked in the department. Then we mention the deductions from the salary using this variable deductions. And lastly, we calculate the total salary using the variable total salary. In the next line, I am going to define the member functions for this class under public access specifier. The name of the first function is get salary info. Inside this, we will type /n, enter basic salary. We will get this information inside the variable basic salary. Then we will ask for the number of days. So here we will have enter number of days worked, that is for how many days the employee was present in the department. Then we will get this value inside the variable days worked. In the next line, we will ask the user to enter any deductions. So if there are any deductions in the salary, they can be mentioned using the variable deductions. Let's move on and define the next function of the salary class, which is void calculate salary. Inside this function, we will be calculating the total salary of the employee using a formula. But first, we will have to take care of total working days of the month. Let's say it is 30 for every month on an average. Then in the next line, we will calculate total salary using the formula basic salary divided by total working days. This will give me salary for one day, and that salary for 1 day will be multiplied by number of days the employee has worked in the department. This will give me the total salary for the month, and then we will subtract if any deductions are there from this value, and this is how we will get our total salary. Let us display the total salary in the next line. So it will be total salary, and then we will type the name of the variable total salary here. With this, the class definition for salary class is also over. Now we can continue with the main function. Inside this function, we will create an object of salary class. We will type here salary, and let's say the object name is S. In the next line, I am going to type one message, enter the details below, and after this I will type /n. Now in the next line, using this object S, I am going to call the member functions of all the above classes. So first of all, S dot, I will access the get person info function, and this will ask for the name and age of the person. Next is get emp info, and this function will ask for the employee ID. In the next step, I will access get department info function, and this will ask for the department name. After this, I will ask for get salary info here, and once I receive all the details, then I will have to display here showing all the information. Now in the next step, I am going to access all the display functions from all the above classes. So first of all, we want to display name and age of the person. Then we want to display employee ID of the person. After this, we can display department information. In the next step, we can calculate salary. Now let's save this program and run it. In the output, you can see enter the details below, and it is asking for the name. Let's say the name is Bob, age is maybe 30, employee ID let's say is 101, department name let's suppose is HR department, then basic salary is suppose 30,000.00, number of days worked let's say 28 days of this month, deductions let's say deductions are 1770.98. after that, showing all the information, and here we get name, age, employee ID, name of the department, and total salary is calculated here. So this is how inheritance works.